LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the December 25th edition of LiberalViewer Monday Media Mixup. Thanks for joining me. Happy holidays to everyone. I'll be using the 9 best, most newsworthy clips that I picked out from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the big 5 corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called, okay, I'll put them down, the so-called corporate media here in the United States. That was Cheech, one of my 2 kittens. I do have a bonus Cheech and Chong kitten clip at the end for the new Cheech and Chong fans out there. You can see my topic is no news is good news on Christmas weekend for the corporate media, and that's based on the fact that three of the 5 Sunday morning news analysis shows were pretty clearly pre-recorded on December 24th, Christmas Eve, their Sunday show. It was NBC, CBS, and CNN. NBC made it pretty clear they weren't doing news this week. You'll see they had this special thing about people outside Washington who influenced the news, and I'll talk about that when I show the brief non-news summary from NBC. CBS actually did a bunch of pundit panels talking about the news, and I'll show later how I actually caught them at least 2 days out of date on one news item their pundit panel discussed. And then CNN with Jake Tapper was pre-recorded, but it was on climate change. And, I have said multiple times on the show that I think that people looking back on the news 50 or 100 years from now, if they're going to say, were they really covering the most important topic, they'll probably say, well, why weren't they talking more about climate change? So I can't really fault CNN for doing that. And climate change actually provides the political comedy clip for today, and it starts with this short introduction from Jake Tapper on CNN talking about the recent climate conference, and then there's some good news from Al Gore about climate change, including about how some of the carbon could actually drop out of the atmosphere that I didn't know. And then near the end, there's this kind of a joke from that Al Gore heard from a Saudi oil minister that, it's kind of funny, but it's actually kind of insightful when you think about it. And anyway, we can talk about all of that a little more after we watch that first sort of political comedy clip together today over here.
Leaders finally addressed the elephant in the room this month when it comes to climate change, the burning of fossil fuels. That is the primary cause of our warming planet. Former Vice President Al Gore has been warning the world about fossil fuels for more than 20 years, and he is still working on the issue. He runs a nonprofit devoted to solving the climate crisis and somehow looking to the future with hope that maybe human beings can change. And joining me now is former Vice President Al Gore. Vice President Gore, thanks so much for joining us. So, Mr. Vice President, 2023, officially the hottest year on record, deadly heat waves, catastrophic floods, devastating wildfires, more powerful storms. We've gotten dangerously close to the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold, beyond which experts say humanity and the planet will struggle to adapt. What do you think 2024 will look like?
Well, we still have the ability to seize control of our destiny. Here's the good news, Jake. If we stop adding to the overburden of these greenhouse gas pollutants in the sky, if we reach what they call true net zero and stop adding to the heat trapping capacity up there, the temperatures will stop going up right away. And if we stay at true net zero, half of the human-caused greenhouse pollution will fall out of the atmosphere in as little as 25 to 30 years. We have the ability to do this. And it's not impractical because we now have the cheapest new source of energy in the history of the world with solar electricity and wind electricity. And the electric vehicles reached 20% of sales globally this year. The batteries are now, we had one gigafactory several years ago. Now there are 200 and another 400 being built. You know, a long time ago, one of the Saudi Arabian oil ministers said, we better remember the Stone Age didn't end because of a shortage of stones. It ended because something better came along. We've got something better now. We can do this if we just overcome the greed and political power of the big fossil fuel polluters who've been trying to control this process. It's time for people at the grassroots level in every country to speak up.
Oh, yeah, you saw the joke there from the Saudi oil minister that the kind of insightful. And I also, before, I don't know if that's a real thing, but anyway, the other thing I wanted to mention about that clip that was pretty good for the corporate news media. I don't know if you saw how that ended there, but I will give you, let me show you a screenshot here of Al Gore at the end of that clip. Gore, world needs to overcome greed of fossil fuel polluters. Greed of fossil fuel polluters is not a sentiment you see expressed on the corporate media a lot. And it looked like my stream stopped for some reason there just for a minute, and I don't know if all my live viewers are still with me there, but I may have to upload the recorded show later. I guess we'll see how that goes. But the stream health, it went to poor, and I think it's coming back, but I guess we'll see. It's looking good on my end now, but I don't know. Oh, and now I have another kitten here too. But yeah, that was a good clip from CNN and from Al Gore. Educational, informative, an interesting joke about how the Stone Age ended there. So I am not sorry that I picked that as my political comedy clip. You can let me know what you think. And Al Gore, who had back in the day, I remember when Al Gore was vice president and running for president, he had this reputation for being wooden and humorless, and that was kind of personable. I don't know. You can let me know what you think in the comment section. Oh, there are a couple kittens here. But now I'm actually going to show you the longer news summary from CNN's State of the Union. And then they actually had their report from, who was the reporter? I don't think Bill Weir, their CNN's chief climate correspondent. Like I said, this is probably the best news summary. I don't know, maybe it's even the best news summary of the year, because if you're using the metric I was talking about, where we're looking back on the news from the point of view of someone 50 or 100 years in the future, and what do they think the most important story was? Well, here's like 6.5 minutes of it from Jake Tapper and Bill Weir on CNN State of the Union yesterday morning over here.
Jake Tapper in Washington, where the state of our union is sounding a very clear alarm. We are closing out 2023, a year we may look back on as the time that people started to truly grasp that the climate crisis is here, and it is already costing lives and livelihoods. From deadly wildfires to mudslides, devastating floods, and soaring temperatures, we saw it all. 2023 was the hottest year in at least 125,000 years, scientists say, as they warn that the world is inching perilously close to the threshold beyond which humans and ecosystems will struggle to adapt. In the U.S., cities in the South and Southwest were particularly hard hit, with Houston, Texas, experiencing the longest extreme heat streak of any major city on Earth. And drought-stricken Maui in Hawaii reeled from the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century. Ocean temperatures hit record high levels as well, fueling hurricanes and tropical storms around the planet, with Antarctic sea ice at record lows. World leaders gathered earlier this month to try and address this crisis. They came to a landmark agreement to start moving away from the use of fossil fuels, the primary driver of climate change, though there are loopholes in that pact, loopholes that many countries will surely exploit, loopholes that will allow them us, because really there's no them. It's only us to avoid action. And it's about time. As experts warn, next year will be even warmer, causing more violent storms, heavier rains, more intense and frequent heat waves, droughts, wildfires. Today's show, focused on this one topic, climate change, is intended as a warning, an alarm about where we are as a world, where we need to be, the opportunities that exist, and the peril that awaits. CNN Chief Climate Correspondent Bill Weir has been here to see it all this year. Let's take a look at the year in climate crises.
Science tells us that 2023 was the hottest Earth has been in 120,000 years, shattering records in ways that are hard to comprehend and creating events that frankly exceed our imaginations. Who could have imagined 31 straight days over 110 degrees, even in Phoenix? The rate of heat deaths in Maricopa County has climbed 25% a year for 2 years running. And desert cities everywhere are realizing the need to build cooling into public policy. But in the same mega drought, who could have imagined rivers in the sky dumping so much water on California that it brought Tulare Lake back from the dead?
If you'd stood here for the last couple of generations, you'd be watching the sunset over dusty fields of cotton or alfalfa or pistachio trees, and now it is waterfront property.
This new age of water whiplash means too much H2O or never enough across huge swaths of the nation, forcing farmers and water managers to reimagine how every drop is used or wasted.
This is the first of what will be many barges that can bring about 500,000 gallons of fresh water at a time.
2023 forced the economy to reckon with a Mississippi River too low to move food like it used to, and too weak to keep Gulf saltwater from creeping into drinking and irrigation supply. And when West Maui was the lush Venice of the Pacific, no one imagined how generations of water theft and invasive grasses would turn the capital of the Hawaiian kingdom to tinder, or the hurricane winds that would blowtorch the precious town of Lahaina into ash in the deadliest American wildfire in modern times.
It's just unrecognizable. One of the most charming, beloved port cities anywhere in the world is just scorched like a bomb went off.
But 23 also brought lessons in resilience.
There you go, man, right there, over your neck. Keep you nice and cool.
From people like Archie Kalepa, the Hall of Fame lifeguard, who is helping lead West Maui back from the ashes with love and aloha. And Heidi Lang, who lost everything to California's deadliest fire 5 years ago, but decided to stay and rebuild paradise.
My community and my neighbors and my friends and my church and my job was all still here. So my little village is here in paradise.
Heidi and her neighbors are learning from tragedy and rebuilding stronger than ever.
These are aluminum frame, tempered glass.
And as disaster forces us to reimagine how to live with nature transformed, breakthroughs in clean energy also abound by the day.
And you only need a tiny little bit of fuel.
That's right, yeah.
Scientists at the National Ignition Facility have repeated their success in nuclear fusion, nudging us closer to a world powered by little man-made stars in boxes that use salt water for fuel and never melt down.
There's still many, many technology jumps that we need to make, but that's what makes it so exciting.
But even if fusion takes generations, the two cheapest forms of energy in human history are already onshore wind and sun. And with a surge of investment in clean energy storage, startups like Antora hope to power entire factories with thermal batteries like this.
1,600 degrees Celsius. So this is hotter than the melting point of steel, and it's just a couple feet inside that shell.
I had a hard time explaining to my kids what nuclear fusion is, but this is just a hot rock in a box.
Exactly.
So 2023 also reminded us to expand our imaginations, not just for the worst that can happen, but the best.
The transition is inevitable. It's going to happen. We have the tools we need. We just need to deploy them.
And joining me now is the chief scientist at the Nature Conservancy and an author of the 5th National Climate Assessment, Katharine Hayhoe.
And I don't have a clip from that. I just have the Al Gore clip I already showed you at the beginning of the program. But I don't know. Is that like the best news summary of the year for the news that will really matter 50 or 100 years in the future? All the little machinations of who's Speaker of the House and even which party controls the White House. I guess, whether Trump is elected and he ends our democracy, that could also be an important story. And anyway, climate change is underreported, especially on the corporate media, by the corporate media. So I did want to give kudos to Jake Tapper and their chief climate correspondent, Bill Weir, for giving us that 6.5 minutes, even if it was pre-recorded. It's not like the climate crisis changed that much between whenever they probably recorded it on Thursday, Friday, who knows exactly, but probably not on the weekend, pre-recorded, no news from a big five corporate news outlet. I'm going to give them a pass because of the climate change thing. But the next two news summaries are actually the two news programs that tried to report on the news. They may have even recorded on Sunday, maybe on Saturday, but ABC and Fox News both seem to actually, work on the weekend, or at least late enough so they knew about the Colorado Supreme Court and the Special Counsel Jack Smith request for cert before judgment on the immunity issue from the DC Circuit Court of Appeals that I'll be talking about later. But anyway, here is all the rest of the news summaries are pretty short compared to what you just saw from CNN. Here's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, where Pierre Thomas, who I don't think Pierre Thomas has ever hosted This Week with George Stephanopoulos. It's usually George Stephanopoulos, Martha Raddatz, or Jonathan Karl, but I guess they ran out of co-hosts on the day before Christmas. Pierre Thomas, who's their chief justice correspondent, and he did really focus on Justice Department issues. He even has this exclusive interview with the Deputy Attorney General that I'm not taking a clip from, but I'll talk about that a little more after we watch that news summary together over here.
Good morning and welcome to This Week. As many of us were focused on getting that last-minute shopping done as we prepare for some holiday time off, in the background, it was truly a week of consequential headlines involving some of our most challenging issues. The crisis at the southern border was back at center stage with record numbers of migrants flooding into the U.S., raising serious questions about the Biden administration's policies. Overseas, the war between Israel and Hamas still raging, sparking new fears of mass starvation and worries that the conflict could lead to terror right here at home. And former President Donald Trump was hit with another legal setback as he continues to overshadow his rivals as the election heats up. But Special Counsel Jack Smith suffered his own setback as well. On top of it all, the country as divided as ever, with a disturbing spike involving threats of political violence. So we begin this morning with one of the most powerful people in U.S. government, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco. She's someone who you may not know very well, but every single day she's making decisions about all those issues and more. We sat down for an exclusive interview in what is truly one of the most volatile and unprecedented moments in the history of the Justice Department.
And I'm going to have a brief part of the panel discussion where they talk to former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, Preet Bharara, who gets something right that CBS gets wrong. Oh, by the way, down in the video description under Media Mentioned, I put short summaries of all 9 of the clips I'm using, if you want to look at those. And then also the source of all the clips are under Sources, so I usually say that earlier in the program. Forgot to say that. But Fox News Sunday also tries to cover some news, but they have this theme for their Christmas Eve show, the Keeping the Faith. You'll see it right at the beginning of this clip here. And you'll see Shannon Bream talk about in this news summary that they talk about on this holy season for many faiths. Then they talk about the border crisis and aid to Ukraine and Israel and the possible government shutdown in January. And the Supreme Court's going to have to decide election issues. But even though they talk about like the many faiths, it's a season for a holy season of reflection for many faiths. Later, they highlight 4 people of faith, and big surprise, they're all Christians. I'm not going to show a clip of any of that, but I am going to show a Fox News bias clip at the end. In addition to these 4 people of faith who all happen to be Christian, they also have only one politician on, a Republican senator from Tennessee, Bill Hagerty, who does sort of this soft version of the Great Replacement theory, and also says some bogus things about fentanyl, and just gets the slightest bit of pushback from Fox News host Shannon Bream. So yeah, if you're looking down in the video description at the clip summaries, clip 9 is a Fox News bias clip I'll talk about when I get to it. But anyway, here is the Fox News Sunday news summary, such as it is from Sunday over here.
Hello from Fox News in Washington. This is a reflective, holy part of the year for many faiths. A time to take stock of where we've been and where we're going. And do we need it more than ever here in Washington and across the country? Congress is now home, facing a massive to-do list in the new year. One of those items, what to do about the border. This week, we've seen record numbers of crossings. Some days, more than 10,000 in 24 hours. The pictures are dramatic. The consequences dire. President Biden is sending his Secretary of State and Homeland Security Secretary to meet with Mexico's president in the coming days, as negotiators on Capitol Hill will continue to work through the recess. Caught up in the debate, U.S. aid to Ukraine, which is set to run out December 30th. Money for Israel also faces resistance. Plus, lawmakers will have just 10 days once they return to reach an agreement on a broader spending plan to avoid a government shutdown. All of this taking place against the backdrop of the first votes in next year's presidential election. And as the Supreme Court takes center stage in the Republican frontrunners' legal battles. Tennessee Senator Bill Hagerty joins us now live from Nashville to discuss.
And anyway, I pretty much pre-criticized that clip. And like I said, the last clip, clip 9, is going to be Fox News bias clip. Bill Hagerty with a modified version of the Great Replacement theory and bogus blaming of fentanyl on undocumented immigrants, the fentanyl crisis. But I'll get to that when we get to the final clip. And I still have 2 more news summaries to show you. The next one is NBC News Meet the Press, which is the last 2 are not news summaries because they're also pre-recorded, but pre-recorded so far in advance that they don't even pretend to really be reporting on the news. And Kristen Welker over on Meet the Press kind of explains the premise of their not a news program. Well, like it's more of a in-context news program where they're talking about people outside of Washington, D.C. who affect our politics. And you'll see that over in this clip.
Good Sunday morning. For more than 75 years, Meet the Press has had a history of shining a light on people who influence our politics from outside of Washington, from Jackie Robinson to Robert Frost, Jane Fonda, and Gloria Steinem.
I am a citizen activist. I think it's in the highest tradition of our country for private citizens to speak out, not just as individuals, but as members of organizations that can have some power.
Well, are you saying that the white, male, educated person is the enemy of the women's movement, or the adversary?
Well, from a statistical point of view, that's accurate.
This morning, we are unveiling a special series, and we're calling it Meet the Moment. From authors to activists, community leaders, poets, and scientists, the voices outside of our politics shaping conversations that matter. We begin with actor Selma Blair, who's known for her deadpan humor with...
Yeah, and I'm not going to show you any of those clips. I couldn't keep going on the Selma Blair clip because I would have gotten like some copyright notice for Legally Blonde, the clip from Legally Blonde they show. She was like one of the villains in Legally Blonde. But actually, Meet the Press, they upload it to the NBC News YouTube channel sometime on Sunday usually. Here, I put it in the video description, but also here in the live comments, you can see the full special edition of Meet the Press free on YouTube at the link I put in the live comments and down in the video description. Don't watch it now. I still have more clips. I'm not done with the show. I do have a kitten right here, but maybe I'll show more live kitten action as well as the bonus Cheech and Chong kitten clip at the end later. I want to get to the final news summary here from CBS News Face the Nation, which has really no news in it and was recorded at least 2 days early, as I will prove in the subsequent clip. And they kind of took a risk there pre-recording the show, and in the clip after next, I'll show you they got caught. But here's Margaret Brennan kind of introducing the first panel you're going to see in my next clip. And the idea of the pundit panel talking about the future and the news over in the final news summary for the program today over here.
Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation on this Christmas Eve. It's tradition here at CBS News to gather our Washington reporters and look forward to the year ahead. We begin with our beat reporters here in the nation's capital. David Martin is CBS News national security correspondent. Jan Crawford is our chief legal correspondent. Robert Costa is our chief election and campaign correspondent. Catherine Herridge, senior investigative correspondent. And Jeff Pegues is our chief national affairs and justice correspondent. So thank you all for
So yeah, that's the setup there. They're talking about the news, and they don't really tell you it's pre-recorded, but it's at least 2 days old, because I'm about to show you a clip here where Jan Crawford and a little bit Robert Costa, but and Margaret Brennan, of course, they all they're talking about this request that the special counsel prosecuting Donald Trump, Jack Smith, in the January 6th insurrection case, or the overthrowing of the government case, or whatever you want to call it, in front of Judge Chutkan in the D.C. circuit, in the district court in D.C. Judge Chutkan ruled against this stupid argument from the Trump team that Trump has total immunity from anything he did as president. He can't be criminally prosecuted for anything he did as president. And what happens after the district judge makes a ruling, it gets taken up by the Court of Appeals. In this case, it's the D.C. District Court of Appeals. And then after that court rules, it goes to the Supreme Court. But Jack Smith, the special counsel, made this special request to the Supreme Court to take it away from the appellate court and go straight to the Supreme Court. On Friday, December 22nd, 2 days before this discussion you're about to see was aired, the Supreme Court said, no, we're denying that request for certiorari, request for cert. That's why I just say cert. It's one of those Latin words that's hard to say. Certiorari, I believe is the way it's said. But anyway, Jack Smith's request for cert was denied, cert before judgment, by the Supreme Court on December 22nd. But on December 24th, you can see the panel of pundits on Face the Nation here discussing, was it a good move? What's going to happen? Like as if it hasn't already been decided over here.
Apart from this particular case, there are others the Supreme Court may take up in relation to the former president and current frontrunner for the Republican nomination.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like whack-a-mole, right? Like you've got one over here and you're going to try to, he's going to try to put this one up and knock it down. Another major issue, legal issue brewing, is whether he can be prosecuted criminally for some of the actions around January 6th. Now, a federal district court judge here in D.C. said that he was not absolutely immune from prosecution as a former president. The special counsel, who is, of course, charged the former president with the actions around January 6th, has asked the Supreme Court, and of course we'll see how they handle this, has asked the Supreme Court to jump over an appeals court and decide whether or not the former president of the United States is immune from criminal prosecution for actions he took in office.
This is a big request to come from the special counsel. It's unusual to try to bring it all the way to the court this quickly, right? And this will have major implications, obviously, Bob Costa, on the campaign you are covering. But tell me what you're hearing about what the special counsel is thinking in going through these steps.
As I look ahead as a reporter, the campaign is going to come back again and again, likely to the high court, and how it's going to consider Trump's conduct in and around January 6th, whether it's the immunity question, whether it's about the January 6th defendants who have their cases coming before the Supreme Court, whether it's about how the court's going to proceed if Trump's convicted in the special counsel case. All this comes down to what was an insurrection? What's an insurrectionist type act? What was the president's role? What did he not do? Did he conspire against the United States? Based on our reporting at CBS News, the special counsel has phone records. He has memos and diary entries from key witnesses like former Vice President Mike Pence, key eyewitness testimony from people who were inside the Oval Office with Trump. And we got a bit of a taste of this with the January 6th committee in recent years, but they had something in the special counsel's office the January 6th committee never had, which is subpoena power to really go deep with witnesses and not just get public testimony in some depositions. They've gone deep. And I've talked to people who participated in this investigation as lawyers, sometimes even as witnesses, and it's evident to me, based on my conversations with sources, that Jack Smith has a sprawling case against former President Donald Trump.
Oh, here's the other kitten. This is Chong. You saw Cheech at the beginning of the show. Cheech is right. Wait, can I get him? Oh, Cheech is under my chair right now, but I just want to make sure you got to see both the kittens alive. And there he goes. He is also more of a jumpy kitten. Chong is definitely a lot more independent, or wants his own space. Oh, no. Oh, he's going after my hanging earbuds here. But anyway, you saw there a really bad analysis from CBS News Face the Nation on December 24th, yesterday, given that 2 days earlier, on December 22nd, the Supreme Court already ruled on that issue, and they didn't seem to know it just because it was pre-recorded. I guess they don't have to work for that, but for a couple days, but took a couple days off. But anyway, the next news clip I want to show you is just a brief part of the panel discussion on ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos, just to counteract the bad discussion you just heard. Here's the host, Pierre Thomas, talking to former Southern District of New York U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara about the same issue, but actually knowing what happened on Friday. So this probably, I mean, it could have been recorded late Friday, maybe Saturday, maybe even Sunday, who knows, but at least they knew the news on the topic over in this clip.
Let me start with you. On Friday, the Supreme Court said no to the special counsel's Jack Smith's request to expedite a ruling on whether Trump has total immunity in the election interference case. How big of a setback was that for the special counsel?
So that remains to be seen. Obviously, the special counsel argued stridently for fast-tracking the case and getting it done quickly, because there's an election coming up, although he doesn't say that outright in the petition. It is still possible that the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals decides the matter fairly quickly in the next few weeks. And it is also possible that the Supreme Court then has an understanding that it'll immediately take jurisdiction and decide the case, but it may not. And if it does not, Donald Trump has an opportunity to go back to the full D.C. Circuit. That will take some weeks. And if he fails there, he can go back to the Supreme Court, which has just recently denied the petition. So that could take some months. And so the March 4th trial date, currently set, looks like it won't happen.
Wow, very much in jeopardy, because we're talking about weeks, not months.
Yeah, but weeks can turn to months pretty quickly.
Weeks can turn to months pretty quickly. I don't know what that kind of analysis means, but Preet Bharara is correct that This could delay the March 4th date for Jack Smith's trial in the D.C. Circuit Court on Trump's attempt to overthrow the November 2020 election, including the January 6th insurrection, but actually including a whole bunch of actions around that. So it's not quite accurate to call it the January 6th insurrection trial. But anyway, at least ABC got the news correct there, unlike what you saw from CBS in the previous clip, which is kind of a black eye on CBS News Face the Nation for not catching that mistake for 2 days before the program aired. And now I'm going to show you the final Newsmaker clip. This is the Fox News bias clip that I promised you earlier. You're going to see they only had on a Republican politician, in addition to all of the people of faith who just happened to coincidentally be Christian later in the program. The 4 people of faith they found to talk about keeping the faith were all Christian. But this is Bill Hagerty, senator from Tennessee, who I'm just assuming is Christian. And he's talking about the negotiations between Republicans and Democrats about this bill to send aid to Israel, to Ukraine, and more money for the border, and maybe changing border policy. I talked about this some last week about how Republicans want to turn away people who are seeking asylum, keep them in Mexico. And anyway, it's not a very humanitarian policy, and not much pushback from Shannon Bream on that. But you'll see Bill Hagerty makes some pretty startling claims about Democrats. First, this modification of the Great Replacement theory. There's this right-wing conspiracy theory that Democrats want to bring in immigrants to replace, good, hard-working Americans and transform our society and turn them into voters. Bill Hagerty has sort of a modified version where it's just to increase the population in the blue states that are losing population so they can get more congressional representation. No pushback from Shannon Bream on any of that. He does say something about how illegal immigrants are responsible for Americans dying of fentanyl, and Democrats want that to happen or something. And there's a little bit of pushback from Shannon Bream on that, and I'll talk about that after we watch the final Newsmaker clip of the program today over here.
You mentioned they've fallen apart. Do you feel that it's come to a stop? Are we moving backwards? Is there forward progress? Where are we in your assessment?
It's hard to say because we've got to see it all come together at once. We get piecemeal language that might work, that might be one step forward, but if they loosen something else, Shannon, if that makes sense, we've got to look at it in its entirety because the Biden administration has been clear. They want to destabilize the border. They're encouraging as many people to flood into this nation as they possibly can, essentially to backfill the blue states where populations are leaving and to help them in the calculation of congressional seats going forward and electoral votes. But that needs to stop. The danger that they're willing to put our nation through is unconscionable. The number of lives that we deal with just here in Tennessee that are lost to fentanyl, 2,000 to 3,000 kids this year, Shannon, will die due to fentanyl overdoses. And the Biden administration is willing to look the other way while they transform America. It has to stop.
Well, you're not suggesting they actually want our borders to be overrun and for Americans to be killed by what's coming across the border, are you?
I'm suggesting that they're tolerating this. And it's clear. We already have the tools. President Trump proved this. He had the border taken down to a practical shutdown. The Remain in Mexico policy that's still on the books could be imposed tomorrow. Title 42, they tossed that. Everything that's happening right now is an acceleration of people into our nation. The supplemental language that the Biden administration sent over earlier for this package that includes Ukraine, Israel, when they say border, what they've asked for is more money to more rapidly process people into our country and for the ability to transform ICE, the only law enforcement agency we have that can deport people, to transform that agency into a resettlement agency. It's a shame.
So the supplemental includes all of these very difficult conversations, but it's just part of what's waiting for you in January. The New York Times puts it this way. It says the Senate failed to deliver on aid to Ukraine. It could not agree on a border policy plan, and a government shutdown is on the horizon. Punchbowl sums it up this way, very simply. January is going to be terrible. So the fact that we now have these two...
January is going to be terrible. That didn't look good, but... Anyway, I kind of pre-criticized that clip in terms of Bill Haggerty's claims, the whole great replacement theory that got no pushback from Shannon Bream. She only lightly said, well, they don't really want them to overrun the border and kill Americans. You're not really saying that, are you? Well, they're willing to tolerate it, is the answer, but nothing about, and also, fentanyl comes across the border not through undocumented immigrants. Almost all the fentanyl, according to the U.S. government, the fentanyl is coming across in vehicles at legal border crossings. The legal border crossings vehicles have hidden amounts of fentanyl. They smuggle it across in the vehicles. And Cheech is over here. I don't know where Chong went. I'm about to give you the bonus Cheech and Chong kitten clip, and I just want to say, because I got these kittens, Cheech and Chong, I realized that they actually have some expertise about illegal substances coming in vehicles across in the legal border checkpoints, because if you watch their movie Up in Smoke, they actually smuggled a van made out of marijuana across a legal border checkpoint. So that's where the fentanyl's coming from, and Cheech and Chong know what I'm talking about. And I'm going to show you the bonus Cheech and Chong clip that I promised. This is Cheech being not so graceful in a little battle on the chair that I recorded earlier. I think Cheech falls at the end of this. They're battling on top. This is my laptop, but this is earlier when the laptop was closed up on a chair, and I'll finish up the program and say goodbye for the year after we watch it together over here. So yeah, the kittens, they do fall sometimes. They're kind of silly, not quite so graceful. I don't know. Cats in general aren't as graceful as some people say. They do have a good sense of balance, but sometimes they kind of fall and look like you just saw in that final clip. But anyway, I appreciate all of you who showed up on Christmas Day for the live stream. I hope that glitch in the first 10 minutes or so didn't ruin the live stream, and I won't have to upload the recorded version. I guess I'll check that out after this processes, but thank you all for joining me today and throughout 2023. I will be back next Monday, New Year's Day, for we'll see if there's any news coverage on New Year's weekend better than what happened over the Christmas weekend from the big 5 corporate outlets. And then we're getting very close to the final year of my live stream that I will be finishing up in January 2025, once we see if there's a peaceful transfer of power. That's like the big cliffhanger we're all waiting to see a little over a year from now. But anyway, I appreciate the live comments. I see people at the end here giving me good wishes, and I also wish you all a happy holiday, happy new year, and I will see you on January 1st, or in the, I don't know, small possibility I have some reason to upload some other video between now and then. That might happen. But otherwise, next year, and for at least another year, I will be seeing all of you around the internet.